And here's the thing, because you might be like many of my friends when I have these conversations, and the idea of spiritual formation feels like a really heady topic, and you're like, whoa, I'm like just checking out God, like I'm coming to church because the pandemic just like ruined everything and everything's up in the air and I'm just checking out God. Like this feels like a deep end conversation. And it has perhaps in the past. But my goal for today is to really demystify this idea for you, because actually all of you are already being spiritually formed, right? Spiritual formation is a human thing. It's not a religious thing. It's not even a Christian thing, right? Whether you believe it or not, you are actually right now currently being shaped by something or someone. All of us are disciples of someone. All of us are disciples of something. Most of us don't know what that something or that someone is, which is problematic to apprentice something that you don't know what it is. You're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? That, right? And but when it comes to being intentional about our spiritual formation, as author John Mark Comer puts it, we actually need, if we're going to be honest, we need counter formation. Because we have to actually counter the consistent practices and habits and media inputs and all the things that are happening in our life trying to shape us to become a certain kind of someone, and counter those things with consistent practices of the life and the way and the teachings of Jesus. These are the things that we're going to put in place in our life this week to actually offset all of the good life messages that we're consistently being fed through culture, commercials, and advertisements. Right? Things that are just in our world that maybe we don't even realize we've become susceptible to or agreed to without even thinking about it. I was driving this week with the kids, and so we were kind of having a conversation, and I'm sure like some really annoying Kids Bop or Blippy song was on in the minivan, and we got to where we were going. We were just going to get something in Carmel Mountain. And again, it's not that far from our house, like 10-minute drive. And I remember we got there, and I was like, I don't remember driving here. Like, you ever had that moment? Like, you're like, I clearly got here safely, thank you. Like, I don't remember getting on the, out of the condo complex, getting on the street, turning left, getting on the highway, turning right, getting off the exit, turning left, and turning left to get in the parking lot. I don't remember. Some of you online are like back tracing that. Where do they live, right? So, like, I don't remember doing that. Like, there are very few phone numbers that I can remember. I don't remember my business line here at the church. We've worked here for almost 4 years. Like, the only cell phone I know is my wife's. But I know my home phone number, and I cannot get it out of my head. And my guess is you probably do as well. I actually know my best friend as a kid's home phone number because I had to remember it. Because now if you open your phone, you press on a name, or some of us just a picture. I don't have to know a number. I just press on your face and I'm calling you, right? If I'm a psychopath that actually calls people, right? Who does that? I'm just going to text you. But here's the thing. Like, there's all these spaces in our life, right? You have these moments where you're like, I don't even know how I did that, but I've done it so many times. I've gone there so many times. And it's this thing that happens in our life. Scientists call it neuroplasticity, where the synapses in our brain that fire together wire together. And this is great for safety. Like, this is evolutionarily wise, right? It's great to protect us, but it's really bad for spiritual formation. Because what that means is if you have a thought, a line that a teacher told you, that your coach told you, that your parents told you or didn't tell you, if you have a line of thinking that you've thought multiple times, it is more likely you're going to think that same thought again. If someone told you that you weren't good enough, or that you messed up too big to come back to God, or that you just weren't pretty or weren't successful or weren't smart, you're going to think that over and over again. And it's actually going to take a lot of consistent effort to overcome that thing that was said once. If you saw conflict handled a certain way, if you saw marriage go a certain way, if you saw God a certain way growing up, it actually is going to take consistent effort to overcome those messages in your life. And so this is why this idea of consistent practices is so important. Have I sold you yet? Right? You're with me? Right? This is not really a sales pitch. It's just, I'm telling it to myself. Right? Because I wish it was quick. I wish it's like, oh, I went to church today. All my thought life is totally fixed. Like, I know everything I need to know about God, everything I know about me, everything's going to be great. It's going to be a great week because I went to church. It might be a terrible week, and I still went to church, right? This is not a self-help fix-it seminar. This is an invitation for you and I to actually intentionally do over and over and over again things that we can do now to build into our soul something that we cannot do right now. I mean, this is the essence of what spiritual formation is all about. The late Dallas Willard, who was one of the great modern authors and practitioners of spiritual formation, he writes this. He says, actually, the process of spiritual formation in Christ is one of progressively, meaning over and over again, it takes time, replacing the destructive images and ideas that we all have in our life, either by our own volition or that have been given to us, replacing those destructive images and ideas with the images and ideas that filled the mind of Jesus. To put it this way, it's taking that theological concept of who Jesus is and that Jesus lives in me, making that so incredible, right? That's amazing, but moving that from being a theological concept to a practical reality on Monday at 8 a.m., on Tuesday at 5 p.m. when you're in a fight with your spouse, on Wednesday at noon when that big decision is due, on Thursday at 3 when you get that email you weren't expecting that changes everything. It's taking this huge theological idea and going, I have to replace some ideas that I have in my mind with the mindset, the ideas and the images that filled the mind of Jesus. And so the question is, what practices do you and I, want to intentionally, and I would argue consistently, implement this year to help counter the formation that the world is trying to do in your life, to actually build up the spiritual formation that Jesus wants to do in your life?